Welcome to another episode of the Big Dreams, Great Teams podcast, where we explore all the nuances of small business operations and building teams. I'm Paula Maidens. I'm a hiring and leadership coach. Today, we're diving into a common yet often misunderstood topic, which is there a difference between a subcontractor and a freelancer? Now, last week, I talked about who you should hire, subcontractor versus employee, and I've received great feedback about that. However, a lot of people have been confused about this term freelancer. So I want to talk about the pros, the cons, and the differences between a subcontractor versus a freelancer so you can work out what's right for you in your business at this stage and where you're taking things. So let's dive in. So let's start off with the basics and talk about some definitions. While the terms subcontractor and freelancer are often used interchangeably. And in fact, for the purposes of last week's episode, I did use the term subcontractor and I did mean freelancers as well. So many people do use the term interchangeably, particularly in the current market. You know, people talk about subcontractors and they can be either of these two things. However, today we're talking about what is the technical difference between a subcontractor versus a freelancer and how do their working arrangements differ so that you can work out which one's right for me. So technically, a subcontractor is an independent entity that you hire to perform a specific task as part of a larger project or, just a contracted period to do something in your business. Now, they can operate as an individual or they can operate as a company who has a team working with them. So when you're hiring a subcontractor, you may be getting the person you're speaking to and or they may have a team that works with them to help them to deliver whatever it is you're engaging them to do. In a freelancer situation, so technically a freelancer is usually a self-employed individual who offers their services to multiple clients without being tied to a particular company. And freelancers work solo. So when you're hiring a freelancer, that's the person who's likely to deliver the work that you're asking them to do. Now let's talk about an example, which I think we can probably all identify with. Let's say you're running an event at a venue and you hire the venue and you agree a date and you agree all the things where you're going to run your event. Let's say this venue will provide catering and you can choose from pizza, maybe they're going to roll in a pizza oven or they can supply platters of sandwiches that you can choose. And let's say that as part of the package that you've purchased, they also offer to help promote your event and help you fill the spots. What a winner. So the venue that you're buying from, they're probably using subcontractors to provide the chairs, the tables, and the food. That means they're subcontracting another company in who probably have a huge range of all sorts of different colored chairs and, flashing lights, and they will supply whatever you choose. They also may have a totally different subcontracting arrangement with a range of companies who will supply food. Maybe there's a pizza company, maybe there's a sandwich company. So they subcontract those services and they bundle them up as part of the delivery to you. Now, they may also say have a freelancer who works directly for them, who might specialize in digital marketing, and that's the person who's going to help you fill the spots. Now, let's look at each of these different players in a bit more detail and go a bit further. Let's say that I decide that this event that I'm running at this venue, I want the layout of the table and chairs to, I want to have white tables, white chairs. I'm having 6 tables, 6 chairs per table, and I want those flashing letter signs that say team in the background. Let's say I've chosen the sandwich platter because pizza's too messy and we're going to have a working lunch. The venue, in turn, goes to the chair business and says, we need these chairs, we need these tables, and we need the TEAM sign. They go to the sandwich catering business and they say, we need 100 sandwiches delivered at this time, and this is the particular fillings that have been chosen. Now, each of those teams, the chair teams, the sandwich team, the chair business, and the sandwich business, they probably have teams of people who are going to turn up and deliver on the day and deliver the service. On the other hand, there was the freelancer who is a self-employed individual who will be helping with the digital marketing for the event. So I'm introduced to that person in my hypothetical scenario individually, and she talks to me and learns about, what clients I want in there, what sort of bums I want on the seats, who am I targeting, and she helps me to make that happen. And I have ongoing communication with her. However, if we think of the chair people that are turning up on the day and we think of the sandwich person who's going to turn up, I don't know who they are. They've been subcontracted out. So a person has passed it to a person, passed it to a person. Now, in our modern way of working, subcontractors and freelancers actually get bucketed into the same interchangeable term, and usually subcontractor is the term that's used. But I want to talk to you today about the differences, and the key difference that I want you to hear is that is knowing and understanding who specifically is going to do the work for you. Because depending on your personality, your stage of business, the type of project that you have, knowing who that person is might actually matter to you greatly, or you may actually not care too much about it at all. Either are okay, but like anything, we want it to be intentional, we want it to be conscious, and we want you to go in with your eyes wide open. So let's dive in to the pros and cons of subcontractors. So working with a team versus freelancing, which is when you're working with an individual, to help you decide what's right for you, your unique business, your unique direction, your goals, and where you want to take, and the type of life that you want to lead, frankly. So all these things come into play. So let's talk about the pros and cons of a subcontractor, starting with the pros. Now, a huge benefit is the fact that they have the potential to scale up or do a wide range of services for you because, they've got a team that sits behind them. They may, have this wide range of services beyond what you originally think you need, and you might find out later that you need. Now, this means that you can benefit from diverse expertise, diverse skills, and you might be able to just tap into more as you need it and just add things on. Typically with subcontractor teams, they have specialized skills. So they'll have people with specialized knowledge doing specialized roles that you can tap into. So that's really helpful for particular projects or things where, a heavy or a high technical skill is needed. A good subcontractor business will have a team with processes, and it should make it less of a workload for you. Now, I'm saying should. Because I've worked with a lot of subcontracting businesses, I've worked with a lot of agency businesses, and it's not always that easy. They don't necessarily find it that easy. So when you're working with a subcontractor who has a team, in theory, they should have good processes. That means that handing over work and delegating work should really be quite easy for you to pass over. But that is a theory. And I guess in that same vein, a potential pro or potential benefit is that you may not need to hire in the future as your needs change or as your needs grow. Although I do want to overlay that with a little bit of caution, because I have worked with a lot of these businesses and not a lot of them always find hiring, retention, and all those things easy. And part of my mission is to make you realize that hiring people to work directly for you doesn't need to be as difficult as what you might think. So a definite pro, a definite benefit to hiring a subcontractor who has a team means that they have processes, they should have a system. It should make you asking someone to do something and delegating and handing it over easy. However, that also means they need to have a good hiring process on their side for that to actually be your reality. So I guess that brings me into the con camp. So what are the cons? The potential cons is that they might have team turnover. They may actually not be very good at hiring the right people. They may be actually, finding that challenging on their side, and that can affect the quality of the work, particularly if the person you thought was going to be doing the work doesn't end up doing it. They leave, they turn over, the person that gets replaced, etc., isn't as good. So another con is also the lack of control. So, when you engage a subcontractor who has their own team, you won't necessarily know specifically who's going to be doing the work, and you won't necessarily be able to hold on tight to making sure that person doesn't leave because it's not a direct relationship for you. And so therefore the quality of the work can vary, especially if the subcontractor's team are newer or they don't necessarily have the same or equal skill set to the primary person that you have talked to and bought the services from. And the other thing I just want to touch in or pop in here that a potential con might be is the legal considerations. So you will no doubt sign into their terms of business, and their agreements might be complex. They may have long kind of notice periods, but you also need to show caution and be careful to make sure that you are okay with things like how they handle your IP, how they handle the things that they buy, they create for you, etc. So for example, let's talk about a real scenario. If you're hiring a subcontractor who has a team of people and they've got lots of other clients that are like you, and say that you're getting them to build you some software or build your website, it's really important that you legally consider their contract terms and see, well, who owns it? Do I own it or do you own it? If you build or create a process for us that helps make us really, really efficient. Can you go and replicate that process in another business and effectively someone else gets the benefit of our learnings? Or is that work that you can't do for anybody else, or, because we own the IP that is the process and the thing that you've built? So I'm definitely not a lawyer and I'm not here giving anybody legal advice. However, you will need to sign into some sort of contract. So it's really important that you check it, make sure you feel good about it, get some legal advice if you need to, and just really think about the reality of what it is you're asking them to do and whether, who's going to own it, how they're going to do it, the confidentiality of it, what they can talk about, how they keep their systems safe. All those things need to be sort of considered, I guess, and not just taken for granted. Okay, freelancers. Let's talk about the pros and cons of freelancers. So an obvious pro, I guess, is flexibility. So freelancers typically offer more flexibility than a subcontractor because a subcontractor has got a team of people, they've got their own processes, they've worked out their system of how they can be efficient. Whereas a freelancer, being an individual, is more likely to be able to be more flexible to pull into your processes and give you more flexibility around how long they work for you, etc. Whereas a subcontracting, because they've got a team, they need to think about team members, they might have like minimums that it's a 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, etc. So definitely a pro for a freelancer working with an individual is often the flexibility that comes. They might work with you on a short-term basis, they might work with you on a retainer, so an ongoing basis, and they're less likely to try and bring you into their model. Often it's more cost effective because typically freelancers, so an individual working for you, will charge you less because they don't have the team costs, the operations costs that sit over the top. And there's not another sort of person, I guess, who's putting a layer or a margin on top of the rate of that the person who's ultimately doing the work is getting paid. The pro of working with a freelancer is typically you know who you're talking to, you know who's delivering the work, and you'll have direct communication with that person. And it may be legally simpler because you may be able to just get them to sign a subcontractor or a freelancer agreement that you have, whereby you've drafted up the terms that you feel comfortable with around confidentiality, IP, etc., etc. So perhaps you've worked on that with your lawyer, you present them with your agreement and they sign into that versus you needing to review theirs. So a con, because there's always a pro and con to working with everybody or all sorts of different arrangements, and that's what it's about. It's about weighing these things up. So the con of working with a freelancer, so an individual, is naturally the limited capacity. They're one person. So if your project blows out, they may not have capacity. They may not actually be able to turn things around as fast because it's just one person doing it as opposed to a team working on the project or the thing. Reliability will vary based on the reality in the life of that one person. So that brings with it risk, I guess, if something happens to them, if they, fall sick, if something happens to their family, etc., etc. If they go on a holiday, they may not be there to deliver the work. And then naturally, they'll be limited to be able to do based on what their skill is. So, you might ask them to do something they haven't done before and they might be willing, but they'll need to learn it. As opposed to if you're hiring a subcontracting team, someone else in the team may be able to do the thing that the individual person who's working on your project doesn't know how to do. So what's right for you and who should you choose? So hopefully by now your stomach or your brain is starting to have formed an opinion about, oh, I wouldn't want that or I would want that. So hopefully you're starting to get a bit of a sense of, do I want individuals working in a freelance capacity or would I want a subcontractor where a team of people deliver these things for me? So working out what's right, well, hopefully your brain has started to already fire off an opinion. And what is right for you will come down to your stage of business, how you like to work with people though. So knowing control is a positive thing. How much control, how much communication, how much direct toing and froing you like to have with the person. So yes, your stage of business, whether you're starting out, whether this is totally unknown, how comfortable you feel if you're hiring in the skills, yes, that's relevant, but also how you like to work with the person, particularly if you're the one who's going to be doing most of the liaising. Yes, we've talked about control and communication and interaction. Also, I want you to think about if you want to bring them into your processes. And if you're a more established business, it makes more sense to be bringing people into your processes as opposed to them creating processes on their side and running them sort of separate to your business. You also need to have a think about whether you want to feel like this process, this project, this thing is being handled in-house or if it's been handled separately to your business. So based on all the entrepreneurs and the clients and the business owners that I work with, people have two very different and strong feelings about that. And it will vary based on what part of your business it is. For example, bookkeeping. Most people are very happy for that to be done external to their business, to be done by a subcontractor and a team of people. And sometimes they don't mind who's doing it because they're following a set of rules that are governed by all the accounting laws that are out there, for example. However, something else like social media, if somebody's writing the caption for you, they're writing the tone, they need to understand your personality and understand your brand, that might feel more relevant to you, that it's actually an individual freelancer who you knows. Or you might be on the other camp where you think, actually, social media, I want someone who's, is keeping up with industry trends, and someone else who's good at design, and someone else who's a good writer. And that might be 3 different people, in which case the thought of a team of people acting as subcontractors to deliver that social media service, that might feel right to you. So my experience with my clients is that typically you have like a strong feeling one way or another, which is perfect. And I hope today's episode, today's, learning has given you some substance to the way your belly might be naturally feeling, and making sure that, you're not just doing something because you think you should or because somebody else has done it a certain way. So it really will come down to you, your personality, the particular role that needs to be done, the particular skill that you're trying to, get into your business, and whether you want the process in-house or whether you're sort of okay with the process being run and operated separate to you. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on is at the stage of hiring, when you're having an upfront engagement conversation with a subcontractor or an employee, if you're talking to a subcontractor who has, by definition, a team, I want you to just know that you can't assume that the person you're talking to will be the one delivering the work. So, bring that up, be transparent about it, be open about it, and understand, is it going to be you doing it? If not, who's doing it? What's the training that they go through? How do you manage that on your side, et cetera, et cetera. And similarly, if you're talking to an individual who's going to work for you on a freelance basis, talk to them about how they, manage all the clients, how they manage their time, talk to them about time management, talk to them about their support system, and get a bit of a sense of, how they like to work, and therefore how reliable they like to be. And don't put your head in the sand. Know that they might get sick. They probably will get sick. They'll have to go on holidays, etc. So it's about thinking about, okay, well, we need some systems and processes in our business to make sure that when and if that happens, we're still okay. So whether you go with a subcontractor or a freelancer, know there are some relevant things to make sure you discuss so that your business is always moving forward and your business always feels sustainable, and you're not in a position where you need to step in and do the things yourself, because that's not moving things forward. Okay, so I think you've heard that both subcontractor and freelancers have lots of pros and cons. I hope this is giving you some really good food for thought. Both can work really well, and I've also seen both work not so well. And when it's not working so well, it's usually because the business owner up front at the time of making the decision hasn't realized there's a difference between hiring somebody who uses a team to deliver the work versus hiring somebody where the individual is going to do the work. That's usually the source of the frustrations that come up later and the problems that happen. So which one's right for you will be specific to you, your business, your personality, and your particular project. So I hope today has been helpful and given you loads of information. And don't forget, if you want to learn more about the hiring mastery method, which is all part of what we've talked about today, getting clear on who and what sort of person, getting clear on who is right for you and the right type of role is right for you in your business. We cover that all in the hiring mastery method, which I'm so excited to say you can now dive into on demand at any time and come along to 3 group implementation calls. So check that out at paulamaidens.com/hiring mastery. Grab the special pricing, which is never going to be seen again. It goes away at the end of August. So dive in and check that out today. And if you've got any questions, let me know. I really hope to see you on a group implementation call. That's it. paulamaidens.com/hiring mastery. Learn the hiring mastery method so that you can hire with confidence in your business, knowing that the person you're choosing is consciously, intentionally the right person for where your business is at right now, and you as an individual and where you're taking things. Okay, that is all. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, please subscribe, leave a review, leave us a comment. All of that really, really helps, and tell a friend about it. Until next time, have fun.